July 23rd meeting of the Des Moines Waterworks Board of Trustees. We'll go ahead and get started with our agenda today. I apologize, we're a few minutes behind schedule. First on the agenda is our consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the June 25th, 2024 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, minutes from the July 9th, 2024 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and minutes of the July 16th, 2024 Planning Committee meeting. The financial statements, the list of payments for June 2024, summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $50,000, and our next meeting date of August 27th, 2024. Do I have?
Second.
Okay. Anything that anybody would like to call out of that, or anything you would like to point to in that, 10?
Nothing, Andrea, unless there are questions.
Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving into our public, well, first, I see this in front of us. Is this saved for, or the photo of some branding, is that saved for a particular item in our agenda, or is this something we wanted to?
Just something I wanted to share with the board, Andrea, at some point during the meeting. That is branding that we have worked with the Iowa State Fair to do at the bottle filling stations across the fairgrounds. So this year we are sponsoring how many? 13 bottle filling stations at the fair. And that's just an example of the graphics that Melissa put together and provided. They have applied across the fairgrounds. I just thought we just got that today, so I thought I'd share.
That's great. I will say, I just got back into town very, very, very early this morning. And when I went to go get my luggage, it was like getting a hug from my family back in Des Moines, seeing the Des Moines Waterworks Think Downstream mural by the luggage claim as well. That was very cool. If you haven't been at the airport to see that lately, I took a picture of it and I can pass it around.
Go quick because we're trying to get it updated there.
Okay. Well then, moving into our public comment period. Do we have anything or anyone here from the public, either online or in the room today, that would like to share? All right. Not hearing anyone or seeing anyone. Then we will go ahead and move into our action items. And our first action item is a customer appeal at 2037 Capitol Ave.
Andrea, I'll give a quick overview. And then, no, I don't see the customer here, but I'll give a quick overview. Or ask questions. We have a customer who opened an account at 2037 Capitol Avenue in May of 2023. Over the last 15 months, staff has worked pretty closely with that customer, working through a number of questions, including 3 unsuccessful payments, payment agreements, service terminations, some aid payments that were made on the account, working very closely to try to resolve those questions. In May of this year, service was discontinued and the customer indicated that they hadn't been notified properly before service was discontinued. So working with Laura, the customer was able to get service restored, and then requested a customer hearing to address some of the concerns that they had. The customer did meet with the appeals committee, which is made up of Amy and Kyle and Laura, to share their concerns about the past due amount. The appeals committee did, after that meeting, agree to waive some fees that had been applied, some penalties and fees related to the service terminations and other questions on the account over the past several months. and advise the customer that those fees would be waived, but that the remaining balance would be paid. At this point, that balance has not been paid. In fact, no payments have been made on the account since November of 2023. And so today we are here asking that the board uphold the appeals committee's decision, which was to waive $320 worth of fees that have been applied to the account, and then our payment, the outstanding balance, which is $1,017.86 by the 2nd of August. Caitlin, I don't see anyone online. There's no one here, so it appears that we may not hear from the customer. But happy to answer questions between Laura and I if the board has any questions today before making a decision.
So do we need a motion to start discussion, or can we? Because
We don't have to take a motion at all, do we? I mean, if we do nothing, the appeals committee's action stands, right?
I would suggest the board, if the board does want the appeal committee decision to stand, I would suggest that you take action so that it's clear that the appeal has been heard, and then that'll start any clock that might apply to further action the customer wants to take.
does somebody want to make a motion to take this off either to either uphold or adjust?
Move that we uphold the decision of the appeals committee. I second it.
Any questions for Ted or Laura?
I would just ask staff to, I think it's noted in the agenda sheet item, how the customer requested the hearing, but perhaps there could be some discussion about how the customer was notified about this hearing date, or what effort was taken to make sure the customer is aware of this date.
Yes, I actually sent an email that Laura helped me craft. I sent emails on 2 different occasions. Most recently, though, was Friday. At 3:23 p.m. I sent an email to the email address that we've been using to communicate with the customer, advising that the appeal was scheduled for today and at the time, offering the option to attend in person or virtually, included the link, the Zoom link for the virtual meeting we have up here today, and also asked that the customer advise what relief they were seeking from the board. I haven't had a response to either one of those.
So I do have a question. So she was mailed the appeals committee's decision letter. And in that, did it spell out her appeal rights? Yes. And was she told in that letter that she would be notified of the date or given the date of the appeal?
Yes,
As today in this meeting?
not in a letter. She had to request via this, to the CEO general manager and responded to that request.
The request came in via email?
Yes.
Okay, not,
Her request to us to have this
Yeah.
at our board meeting.
Yes.
So
and I will,
again, just for clarification, for the meeting purposes, she requested this appear before our Board of Trustees meeting, and we approved her request to hear it as a board and that information in time and ways to interact with us via virtual or in person was shared twice.
Yes.
then I have a question, John, is that adequate?
Yes.
Would you?
Yeah, I think that's adequate notice in circumstances. Assuming the email address Ted you corresponded with her was the same email address she had used to request the hearing.
That is my understanding, yes.
Any other questions or comments?
I just appreciate the detail when I saw that it had issues. I just think you've really been provided a lot of good information. Starting with what is taking place. I know these are tough situations. But it's important. So thank you for being so detailed. What you provided us.
With that, we have a motion to uphold the adjusted termination amount of $1,017.86 due by August 2nd, 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And she will be given notice of this decision out.
Email her and mail her, which that's. form of communication. Email. The August 2nd due date is the normal 10-day, notice, so we're giving her another 10 days after we send it.
Moving on to item 3B, the note to exceed $15 million water revenue capital loan notes, or not to exceed 15 million water revenue capital loan notes, the SRF Saylorville water treatment plant phase 3. This is a public hearing of a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of notes to evidence the obligation thereunder. So I will, you would think I would know how to do this by now, but I will go ahead and open the public meeting. And ask for information.
Comments from the public.
Yep,
on
comments from the public.
Our plan to issue $15 million in debt to pay for the West Feeder Main Phase 3 project through SRF.
So do we have any comments from the public, either here or online? Thank you, Ted. By the end of my chairmanship, we will maybe get me to do it at once, all by myself. Okay, not seeing any comments. Have we received any written comments?
We have received no comments written.
All right, not hearing or seeing any comments, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and ask for a motion and a roll call vote to adopt the resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action for the authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of not to exceed 15 million water revenue capital loan notes.
So moved.
Second.
With the roll. Yes.
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 And can you remind us all what the next steps are?
I can try, but luckily Amy is here. I will say that the SRF process has a number of steps. You'll remember recently we passed a motion indicating that we were kind of starting the clock on when we could apply costs to this project, so that we could, from that date 2 months back, we could apply costs to this project. Then we move forward and we have to go through this step where we've gotten authorization from the DNR saying that we're going to be able to borrow money. Once we got that authorization, then we have to have this public hearing and tell people that we are going to borrow money. Then there'll be a process where probably PFM will have to put together an amortization schedule that will have to be approved. And then once we get that done, I have to come back to the board again to actually borrow the money. And then I lose track. What's after that? Then we get the money. Yeah. But as Amy has made clear to me, it isn't like a bond sale where you sell the bonds and then you get the money and you put it in an account and they keep the money. And it's a reimbursement process where they have committed to pay for this project, but we have to have invoices that are then reimbursed. But yeah, we get the money.
And it's our goal target to bring the authorization for the actual next month, possibly September.
Thank you. Moving to item 3C, resolution approving post-issuance compliance policy for tax exempt obligations.
Andrea, the IRS recommends that entities that issue tax exempt debt have a compliance policy that just defines in detail all the steps that the organization is going to take to ensure that they maintain compliance with the requirements related to using tax exempt debt. And this is policy recommended by bond counsel, pretty standard format. I will say, there's a list of things that are included, but I will say that by and large, we already do these things, but it has been recommended and we think it's a good idea to just formally adopt this policy. So we are here today simply requesting that the board pass this resolution adopting this specific post-issuance compliance policy related to any sort of tax exempt obligation that we will take out.
We have a motion and a roll call vote to, eventually to adopt the resolution approving post-issuance compliance policy.
So.
And where does this policy live in our overall manual
It'll be part of board policy.
board policy?
We can, it's very lengthy.
I mean, I'm just curious where all of these policies live.
Most policies we define and aggregate as word policy, so.
Yeah, that sounds great. Just thinking about, I know there's so many different things, thinking about SRF and thinking about all of these different procedures we go through and policies that we create and wondering where that clearinghouse is. And I don't know if I need to be able to access that at all times, but just for my understanding of where it is. Okay, any other questions or? Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll give it to Caleb. Yes.
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 Yes, this one.
Yes.
Great, thank you all. Item 3D, acceptance of the MWTP truck scale replacement.
Andrea, in September of last year, the board awarded a contract to construct the new truck scale at the Math Water Treatment Plant. This is a scale that we use to measure the weight of lime residuals that are removed from the Math Water Treatment Plant site. There was a scale there when we purchased the property that was part of the sand mining operation that was for many years, but it was just past its useful life. So we bid and awarded a contract. The contract, all the work associated with the contract is complete. There were a few minor change orders totaling just a little bit over $4,000 in the process of completing the work, but it's all done now, and we would ask that the board accept the Math Water Treatment Plant truck scale replacement contract completed by Edge Commercial.
I need a motion to accept the MWTP truck scale replacement contract completed by Edge Commercial in the amount of $827,059.87.
So moved.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say yes. Any opposed? Moving on to 3E, request authorization to reimburse the city of Pleasant Hill for water main extensions for the for the Martha L. Miller Drive East Extension Project.
Andrea, in Pleasant Hills water rates, we collect a component that helps us populate a water fund for them or a water capital fund. We collect that money, we hold that money for them, and then when either we build something for them, do main replacement or whatever, or they build water related infrastructure, they can request money from that fund to cover those costs. The city of Pleasant Hill extended Martha L. Miller Drive from 71st to 75th. Pleasant Hill, there was a water main component to that, installed water main on the entire length of that project. And they have submitted a request to us to reimburse them for that water main work, $239,000. And we are just here today asking the board to authorize staff to reimburse them out of their water fund for that water main construction on Martha L.
Can I have a motion to authorize the staff to reimburse the city of Pleasant Hill for the water main extensions included in the Martha L. Miller Drive East Extension Project?
Second.
I have a question and I apologize. I probably should know this answer and I don't mean to ask a lengthy question. But so Des Moines Waterworks has this pocket of money for these improvement projects. What happens with regionalization and this pocket of money and future water related enhancement projects?
Yeah, that's a good question. Pleasant Hill is a total service customer today, and they will remain a total service customer. And so, to the extent that, you know, we set their rates, we coordinate with them on how much they want to include in their rates for this capital replacement fund. We'll continue to do that, and we will continue to hold that capital fund for Pleasant Hill and for any other total service customer that wants us to do that. Windsor Heights does something similar. Does anybody else?
They all,
They all do. Okay, so Runnels, Almond, Cumming, Windsor Heights and Pleasant Hill would all have these funds. Normally, we do the work, but there have been cases in Windsor Heights and Pleasant Hill fairly regularly takes money out of that. We'll continue to do that in regionalization, just as we do that.
So,
Because it's for distribution.
okay, that was my clarification there.
It's designated for distribution improvements in their.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with production and where Central Iowa would get involved.
That's correct.
Okay,
And just to be clear, you know, Pleasant Hill has done some water tower painting with that money. They've done some things other than piping, but yeah, it's all local distribution to their system.
okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Right, we have a motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to item 3F. This is a public hearing for the ground lease agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC at the Tenney Standpipe. I will go ahead and start the public hearing and ask if we have any comments from the public, either here in person or online. Do we have any?
We haven't received any comments outside the meeting.
Then I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion to authorize the board chair and the CEO and general manager to execute the ground lease agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS and LLC at the Tenney Standpipe site.
So
Second.
Any comments or questions before we take a vote? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? On to item 3G. Another public hearing for a ground lease with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC at the Wilchinski Standpipe. And I will open the public hearing for this one. Any comments online or in person?
We haven't received any comments outside the meeting.
Okay. Closing the public hearing and looking for a motion to authorize the board chair and the CEO and general manager to execute the ground lease agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC at the Wilchinski Standpipe site. Want to make the
Second.
any questions or comments? these are all, kind of on par with the few that we approved last time.
Yeah, this is the public hearing for the ones.
Right. Okay.
Sorry.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Item 3H is to request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute amendment number 1 to the professional service agreement with Snyder and Associates, Inc. for the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant, transmission improvements, design and construction services.
Andrea, in November of 2022, the board authorized staff to execute a professional services agreement with Snyder and Associates for design, bidding support, construction support, kind of working us through this transmission main project. And they have been prosecuting that work ever since. In the process of doing all of that, there were a number of small additional items were added to the scope. They're listed there. There are a dozen of them, most of them fairly small, but in aggregate, they add up to a total additional engineering expense of $173,000. All of those tasks were things that were added to the scope after we started with the initial design process, and much of it relates to considering alternatives in terms of alignment or different possibilities within the design process. So staff asked them to do all these additional things. They've done those, and we're here today asking the board to authorize execution of an amendment that will add all of these things to the scope of that original professional services agreement.
So, can I have a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute amendment number 1 to the professional service agreement with Snyder and Associates, Inc. in the amount of $173,723 for the SWTP transmission improvements project.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? And that brings us around to our information items. And we can start with the board committee reports and the finance and audit committee.
So we had actually a pretty interesting topic this month about our, I'm gonna say the wrong terms, whatever, but the system development fees for new connections to the system, and kind of really looking at our pricing structure for that and what theoretically are we trying to accomplish with it versus what is practically happening. Sure, maybe speak to much more of the details of everything. So if there's anything in that, but I think we're proposing some changes. The philosophy proposed that I'll in agreement with the idea of growth pays for growth, and that the costs associated with these new connections are paid for these new connections rather than in the rates of the existing payers. Is kind of somewhat the ethos behind the proposal. It does mean that some of these connections will go up a dollar amount. But yeah, it was a good discussion. I learned a lot. So anything you'd like to add?
That's a great summary. We have some next steps. The finance and audit committee generally agree with the philosophy, and so we'll be making sure that we communicate with stakeholders, which includes the city of Des Moines, our service customers, the developer community. It's, I think, important to note that these are pretty significant increases. The current for a residential connection right now is $560, and the calculations to fully recover costs for these are in $3,400 range, which is a significant jump. So we'll be phasing these in over a period of 2 to 3 years. But we believe it's necessary as Alex said, that is for growth, and existing water customers aren't for the cost of expanding capacity.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, this would be for Des Moines and our total service customers, but the suburbs would be free to
Right. Yeah.
do their own one of the questions I had, knowing that we're talking about the city of Des Moines proper and some of the development we are talking about is infill, where there already might be an existing connection. But it may be no longer even a valid one. You say they don't allow anything less than an inch now, but there's a lot of half inch, quarter inch, say half would be this half. So, and I think our understanding would be if there's an existing connection and you're upsizing, you're just paying the difference of what you would have to what you would need. Rather than, which is I think, also appropriate.
And that's a requirement to upsize.
It is, we don't allow half-inch or three-quarter inch connections to be used as an example. So you're required to upsize to 1 inch diameter. But if you have a half-inch or three-quarter there already, you don't have to pay the, we just assume you already had a domestic connection. If you had a 1 inch and you need to upsize to 2 inch for some reason, then you would pay that difference. So
I mean, I think we're getting this significant increase and it's related to the expansion. At Saylorville and that new capacity, and who pays for that new capacity. If you remember, we negotiated and in the agreement, 9% of that is spread to everybody. So 9% of our share won't be in the developer fees, they'll be spread to all customers. But what struck me as we went through this, and we were talking about the costs per gallon to clean up water, it's been like $2 for a really long time. The cost of this new capacity is 16. And the cost of the capacity in the next plant coming on is estimated to be $26
Per gallon.
So when you look at these things and you start thinking about the impact on development, you know, there's different ways that you can manage it. I mean, I think we've all talked about Brook Place pays for growth, but it becomes really important that we do the outreach to the city of Des Moines so they understand what those increases are gonna be. And the other thing, I think in addition to the outreach to the developers and maybe the real estate community, talking about this increase, but talking about what's coming and what's driving it. Because if it's irrigation, and they're talking about development, they may want to be looking at different ways to either with technology or landscaping or something to start to manage those fees. And that may be a good place to do some education. Yes, because we're really talking about some significant.
I think the factor was like 0.67 or something was the peak to, yeah, so like almost an order of almost another level of production just required to be peak.
And that $26 a gallon is region-wide to cost to
Yeah.
clean water.
It's gonna be everywhere.
So, just thinking about, I know we don't have to keep hammering on this, but that was one of the reasons why regionalization made so much sense, so that the entire region would look at the cost of water and the benefit of thinking through those improvements to technology and conservation to, minimize minimize is the word I'm looking for, demand, so that we are not having to clean so much water and produce so much water, for things like irrigation and or knowing full impact of what that cost is. Is the $26 a gallon today dollars?
Yes,
So.
And that's not a hard number.
That's an
It might be
estimate on it.
file notice, but
Yeah, well, 16 is a hard number, right?
Right.
On Saylorville.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Any other comments or questions regarding the Finance and Audit Committee? We kind of hijacked the Planning Committee for a special board meeting, but, anything that we want to share from the Planning Committee here?
We just, we had the PFAS settlement between discussion. And as a follow-up tomorrow, CIW, we're taking forward recommendation. And probably saw it on the agenda that was shared. For us to share this and ask for it. I think the wording was motion of support. From CIW.
And I would just add that on the same day that we had our special board meeting, West Moines Waterworks also had a special board meeting to do the same thing. So they also submitted their claim on that day, or they got authorization to do it, and submitted it the next day like we did. So the action submission is basically supporting or ratifying that both communities submitted their claims and support for that. And then I don't believe it's in the motion, but to begin the discussion of what are we gonna do with that money is part of the concept.
Because you talked about the money and kind of what the concept was. Like we discussed, I don't think there was a need for a motion because we didn't have anything concrete to present to them.
Right, and we did, subsequent to that, in our weekly staff meeting on Monday, we talked in detail about setting this up, and we have a policy that says what that money's gonna, where it's gonna go. We're expecting to receive money. It's 9 installments starting in 2025. And just how is that gonna be managed? What is it gonna be used for? We're already talking about how to set that up.
And like you said, Amy, that would be, we transfer assets. That's just another thing that's on the list that gets. But doesn't get added into it, right?
I just read another article today about where PFAS can be found in pesticides and whatnot, and also in my other recent one was in diapers. Great, great, it is. Well, thank you, for that, and yeah, look forward, well, not look forward, but I'm sure we will, this is the last time we talk about PFAS. Moving on to, speaking of, Central Iowa Waterworks Board and our board membership reports. We received the agenda for the upcoming Central Iowa Waterworks Board meeting. Anything in particular that we want to call out or share from Central Iowa Waterworks?
Just highlight a couple things you can see from the agenda. We continue to have a lot of items that relate to setting up the organization. There are a couple things. One is with respect to the recruitment is going out for an executive assistant, even though we have not yet hired. And executive, I think the thought is that we have Bill Smith doing it on an interim basis, and he really does is reach the point where it needs help. And if he can get somebody in and get them up and going, it will be just that much easier when somebody comes in. So I believe that's been posted, or it's been authorized to be posted with respect to the recruitment for the executive director. I think I talked to Jody and he said that the recruiter said that a job description will be ready on Thursday, and that they have been looking at comparables for salaries, and they'll make a recommendation. It's the executive committee that's doing that and looking at that. I think the other thing at note is that we will consider whether Des Moines Waterworks should provide the meter to cash services for Central Iowa Waterworks. And Amy, do you want to just briefly talk about what that is?
Yeah,
What that means?
so meter to cash is commonly used, for the processes and the functions and activities of taking the meter readings, billing the members based on those reads, collecting the cash, and then let's see how. And we are recommending, and he is really staff from a working group that meets with more, not just Waterworks, but also Urban Green and Festival, the interim director, Bill, And that it just makes sense for Des Moines Water Works to continue doing this. This is, we already have the automated system. We're already doing all of the billing for the members. Other than grinds. So there would need to be some manual entries into the billing system for the producers, but that's not a problem. And so, you know, our perspective is Des Moines Water Works is the fastest way to get up and running. It frees us to be focusing on the other tasks that are gonna be more complicated probably. We are, system and processes are already in place, the lowest costs. There seemed to be support for this from the Central Iowa Water Works.
So, and we'll bill for that service.
It will be encompassed in our production costs that we recover.
Yeah, to do it any other way would require duplication.
It'd be far more expensive.
In time expense wise.
Amy did a terrific job at the finance committee for CIW, setting this and kind of the, you know, what the savings would be. And I think it's a real eye opener to everyone on the committee as far as the infrastructure we have in place and how really this.
That presentation, if you're interested in seeing, is in the packet.
Yeah, and I will say that the committees are up and running, the technical committee. Now there's a report, I think those minutes are in there, and the long range planning committee.
I see on the back of our fair mural, we have a logo.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the logo. We have to get that transferred. Ted, do you want to talk about that?
Couple of things, Diane, that I'll touch on. One is the trademark. Des Moines Waterworks trademarked the words Central Iowa Waterworks many years ago, a decade ago. And so we are going to transfer that trademark to Central Iowa Waterworks. And relatedly, we've been working on a logo for Central Iowa Waterworks. This has been involved with that, and shared a number of options with the executive committee. And this is the one they chose, and so it's going to the Central Iowa Waterworks board tomorrow for approval. We're anticipating that will be the logo for Central Iowa Waterworks that will be used on their letterhead, their trucks when they have them, and all things to Central Iowa. So I just thought you might want to see what that would be.
I apologize for stealing your thunder later in the agenda.
Thundered plenty, right?
Anything else with any other questions or items to share from Central Iowa Waterworks?
I think things are moving on a pretty good schedule.
We're still optimistic that we can get to operational commencement and asset transfer by the end of the calendar year.
Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden Board.
Anything
Makes it easy. The Waterworks Park Foundation. You have a listing of the events there at the park, and kind of a breakdown of what they are and what's to come. I'll share that we are turning a corner on the foundation's fund for an executive director. They're conducting interviews on Friday to try to get a full-time executive director to take on the duties that they've been kind of spreading out between two consultants and a working board. So that's exciting to see them take that next step in becoming a standalone sustainable organization. The events have been, they're having a really good year, meeting projections for the events and the income coming in from those. I know that they've been having meetings with the utility regarding their depreciation fund and maintenance fund and working through some of those discussions to get themselves set up for kind of their next evolution of a organization. Pat, is there anything you want to point out in particular from our last meeting?
No, I think you covered it. Melissa did share some information on the Citizens Water Academy to the board and the members there, so that was interesting. But other than that, nothing else.
Have there been any complaints about the noise or continuing concerns with that?
Oh, Pat, help me out here. There was one event recently.
Yeah, there was one, the last, I think right before 8035, that would have been what's it say up there? The Country Act, Brantley Gilbert, there was some complaints. That one was kind of loud, but I think it was still within our permit, so I don't know that there was any violation or anything.
Yeah, right. So I don't think there is a violation, but it was noticeable and they did adjust despite the fact that they were still within their allowance of noise. Any other questions regarding the Park Foundation? Okay. Then I guess we'll turn it over almost to you, Ted, for your comments. I wanted to quickly, I know I thought I was going to hold off on mentioning this until we received our AMWA Gold status.
Yeah.
But having personally gone through the process of preparing a beast of an application, I did want to point out and celebrate all of the work that Melissa and staff have done to be able to enable us to participate in seeking and I'm going to say it wrong, but a AMWA Gold Utility Gold Award.
Yeah, they just call it Gold Awards. It's for excellence in utility operations. So we applied.
And I
See how it
think
goes.
we're a worthy applicant and that the ability to apply speaks volumes to the staff here and all of the work that you all are doing on a daily basis. And our Melissa and her expertise in being able to convey that in the application. So I wanted to make sure that that was recognized because I know that we don't take the time to celebrate things like that enough. But with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Just a couple of quick things for me, Andrea, today. One, I think you're probably already all aware, because of the various channels of information we have, that on the 12th, the nitrate facility was taken offline after 66 days of operation. That's the most days in a while, and I'm glad that we were able to get to that point to take some strain off of our folks. Water production, Nathan and his crew did a great job getting it up and running, keeping it up and running, and meeting the standard, even though I don't know, I went through a roller coaster of emotion during this nitrate season where it looked pretty bad, and then it looked pretty good, and then it looked kind of bad, and then it looked pretty good, and now it seems to be okay. So good job, Nathan and the team, for keeping us in compliance through that 66-day period. The trademark information, that transfer is in the packet if you're interested in seeing that. The actual trademark that we have on Central Iowa Water Works is there. Also in the packet is our quarterly strategic plan update. Just a couple of things to highlight there. We're making good progress. We're halfway through the year. This is basically for the end of June. One of the things that the top one on the list there is the leading indicators for safety, trying to keep trying to get everyone to engage in safety, talk about safety. We have a goal of having employees submit at least 200 leading indicators this year. We're at 127 at halfway through the year. So we're making some progress there. Recruitments, we're trying to fill all of our positions, trying to fill 80% of them within 60 days. We've got 3 or 4 really stubborn ones that we've been struggling with that are kind of holding down that percentage, but hopefully there won't be any more stubborn ones that will be able to meet that goal. Doing a great job on reducing estimated reads, and I'm confident Lord guaranteed me that we can down to 2.5%. Maybe I'm overestimating the guarantee there. Also doing a good job with our affordability analysis, and with several things I would encourage the board to take a look at those if you have any questions. Certainly let me know. And from a safety perspective, the safety update this month, focusing on injuries, and we never like to have injuries. We've had 3 recordable injuries this year. We just thought it'd be of value to put the chart in for the last many years to show the progress we have made. And while some years we have 6 or 7 or maybe even 10, this year we're at 3. We're optimistic. We're hopeful that we can maintain a low number. We've made an enormous amount of progress in the last 20 or so years as we've really focused on trying to reduce the number of reportable injuries that we experience. And we've done really good things, but always more work to do on the safety front. I just think it's a good reminder, as Andrea said, we don't celebrate our successes enough, and we've made a lot of progress there over the years. The community outreach update is also in the packet. Heartland had a field day. Melissa and I were able to go up there and meet with a number of producers and talk to them about water and conservation, and then Heartland demonstrated their cover crop cedar. That was a great event and very well attended. I can say they had dozens of producers there. Saw that. And then the last thing, the board, you probably see this little chart that's in the beginning of the board packet every month, but this one, it's important. It's interesting. It's been wet. We've had a lot of rain this year, and I think it's nice to note that even though it's been wet, if you look at, there's 4 quadrants of this graph, and the upper right-hand quadrant shows pumpage compared to the last couple of years, but then also compared to our budget. The green line is what we budgeted pumpage to be, and even with the rain and the lower demand, we're still above what we budgeted. So we budget very conservatively, and even though we're not setting any pumpage records this year, we're still ahead of what we budgeted for the year. And then revenue is the same thing. We're ahead of what we budgeted for revenue, even though it's been a lower demand year than we've seen in history. So we try to budget appropriately but conservatively. So I was wondering, and I just thought I'd point out to the board that we are on track, at least through the first half of the year in terms of pumpage and revenue. And I think that's it, Andrea, unless I kind of skipped ahead there on a couple of those.
I have a question. Did that tornado that went through, did that hit any of the park?
It did actually. And the roadway that goes between the office here and the plant, we have a nice row of mature trees there, and we lost one large cottonwood in that row of trees. We also jumbled up a lot of things in the beer garden, turned over a lot of fencing and some picnic tables, and then a few other limbs, but we were kind of right at the end. It
Yeah.
sort of just ended right here. It's almost like it came off of the bluff, and then it just was gone, but we did see.
The Mars coffee cart got moved about 20 feet from where it was originally located. But apparently, luckily didn't tip over, so we could just move it back into place.
Kyle, is there other notable damage other than the tree and the kind of beer garden area?
Most of the trees, the fencing.
It's very focused though, Nathan. We didn't have operational impacts from that. So pretty focused, but didn't lose one majestic tree.
Any other questions or comments for Ted or staff before we close out?
Just gonna note the Lindsay of
Yeah?
the table for the softball meeting. We didn't ask her a single question.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed. Thanks.
Okay, well, and then a motion, to close out.
Adjourn.
All right, motion adjourned, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.